Hi, my name is Hans Eriksson, and welcome to my third installment on lighting and look development, where I'm going to be featuring three different scene projects that I'm working on. Uh, Over the past couple days, I've been featuring PBR rendering using Renderman version 21 and using the PxrSurface Shader. Uh, which is what they used, or currently, which is what Pixar Studios is currently using. And but I've been using it in conjunction with Renderman for Maya. But quite truthfully, Blender has that very same ability to render with version 21 Renderman. And so what I'd like to do is kind of talk about that real quick and how to set that up. Currently, I'm running Blender, and I'm on, I think, 2.79. But as you can see, I do not have Renderman enabled. In fact, I don't even have it downloaded for this. Now, I do have Renderman because you're going to have to do two steps in order to get Renderman for Blender. The first one is you're going to have to run over to Pixar and pick up Renderman. Once you get to this page, if you click Get Renderman, and sometimes this link sticks a little bit. Come on. And anytime now. I don't know why I have trouble with that. Come on. Ah, there we go. And as soon as you get to this page, you can either get a quote and purchase version 21, which is $200 a year, or you can get it for free. Now it says try for free, but what this is going to do is it's going to take you to this page where you can register for a non-commercial license. If you have not already created an account with Pixar Renderman, you're going to have to do that. And I currently have an account, so I'm going to go ahead and log into that. There we go. And it will take you to this one here for non-commercial use only. You click on this, it'll take you to this page here where you're going to have to answer a series of questions, and as soon as you're done, it will take you to the download page where it'll take you to download and install Renderman. Will be Renderman for whatever box you're running on. It is supported in Linux, it's supported in Mac, and it's also supported in Windows. Once you're done, you're not quite done. The next thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get Renderman for Blender. And so let me type that in, Renderman for Blender, and it'll take you to GitHub. And once you reach GitHub, you can either download the master branch, but what I like to do is I like to download the exact release I have. Currently, this machine is running Renderman for Blender 21.4, so that's exactly what I'm going to download. And it's a really quick download. As you can see, it's pulling down right now, and it's done. It should be in my downloads folder, but I can close out all my web pages. I can come over here, go to User Preferences, and I'm going to install this add-on from a file. And you can see right there it is, Renderman for Blender version 21.4. Click on that and install. As soon as you get to this page, and like I say, it's extremely quick, you go ahead and check that little box there. And I like to save user settings, and then let me see, Shift S, cursor to center, and then I like to go save startup file. Whoops. Save startup file. There we go. Now, as you can see, I now have Renderman for Blender, and right now we're pretty good. Now it's asking me if I want 21.5. It'll probably say that every time, but presently I'm at school right now, and school has 21.4 installed, and so that's what I'm going to have to run. Now I have a couple of things that I like to make before I really start rendering, and one is on the display. Everything will look pretty much like this when you first get it, but I like to have keep UI, and I like to use it for the rendering window. I've had some crashes when I don't use this particular configuration, so I really kind of suggest it. Now if I go ahead and start a render, it should be rather quick. The IT window will open up, and I'm currently rendering in Renderman. Now it's not a very good looking render right now because it's really doesn't have any Renderman materials or Renderman lights running, but you can see that it's running rather quick. I'm going to go ahead and close that window. And the next thing I like to do is, if we go ahead and open up user preferences and expand this window, you're going to see that where it comes in is, now when I create a, I'm rendering, you can see that this is set for temp, and normally you should be able to go and click this in browse anywhere you want to go ahead and render to. However, what I found is Renderman pretty much is going to render where it wants to render, and it has a global output folder, and right now on the installation it's located at C temp Renderman for Blender, and then creates a folder it creates a project folder for the blend that you're running. And in fact, if we go over and go to that, let's go to C, and there's the temp folder that was created. You can see that it's created this folder, Renderman for Blender, Untitled, and then you should have, eventually you'll get images in here. But that is not where I want it to go. I would rather go to where my project files are. So what I try to do is I usually use this particular drive that is called Render, and let me go to this temp folder here. Let's go to the temp folder again, and this particular file name, I'm going to go Control C and copy that. Then I'm going to run over to this file here, and this is my folder here. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Renderman for Blender. So my new output directory, and you can do this wherever you want, will be, in my case it'll be R, and then Control O Erickson, ERICKSON, and Renderman for Blender, and save user settings. And then again, I'm going to come back to here, and I'm going to go back to previous. I'm going to go File and save startup file. Okay, now whenever I relaunch Blender, I should be totally set up, so let's go ahead and give that a try. And any day now, there we go. And let's go ahead and reopen Blender, and I've defaulted to Renderman for Blender. I have my keep UI, and it is going to render to it. And if I go ahead and look at my user preferences, I go down to my rendering tab and open this up. You can see that now I'm going to be rendering to exactly where I want it to render to. And all my project files will be going to that one particular folder. So that is how you create and install on Renderman for Blender. The next portion of this video will be on, just as I did with Maya, how to do your hookups and utilize PBR rendering with with PxrSurface material, which is the main shader for Renderman version 21. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to need to do is I want to upload my file that I'm going to use, and I've got a test sphere that I was able to download from, and I kind of like it. It's a substance, it's called a substance sphere, and I was able to get it from Substance Share from Algorithmic, and but I'm going to delete the cube here, and as you can see, I have created in my personal folder here, I've created a Blender files directory, and the particular metal that I'm going to be, or substance that I'm going to be working with is metal rust. And in here I've got an FBX file and a texture file, and I can take this particular one here, and I can go save as, and let me get to here, Ericsson, Blender files, metal rust, and I'll go ahead and call this metal rust blend file. Okay, let me Shift S, cursor to center, there we go, and I'm going to go ahead and import the FBX file that I'm going to be working with, and there it is right there, and it's rather small, but I'm going to import it in. As you can see, it is rather small, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So there's my substance sphere, and I'm going to S and make it quite a bit bigger. Then I'm going to go ahead and go Object, Apply, Rotation and Scale. So everything is pretty well zeroed out. And then my camera here, if I go Alt G and Alt A, I'm going to, whoops, not Alt A, stop that, go back there, Alt R for rotation. Let's go ahead and now rotate my camera on the x-axis 90 degrees, and I'm just going to kind of move it back a little bit. And now let's go ahead and look through the camera. My object here, I'm going to rotate it on the x-axis or the z-axis and bring it around, and then I'll rotate it. Well, let's just do a little free rotation here, and that's pretty much how I want it to look for right now. So pretty well good to go. Let's make sure we're on smooth shading, and we are. We can go ahead and increase the resolution on this, and I'm happy with the settings so far. Now, I don't really have a Renderman light just yet, and I'd like to have that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the light here. Actually, I can delete this light. And if I go over to the Renderman tree, I want to add a environment light. And I can then take this light and hit Alt-R and Alt-G and snap it right to the base there. Now this is pretty much like a dome light, but I have to add, if I come over here to this tab here and go to the basic tab here, I can add a color map file which will create a lit background. Now if you have Renderman installed, if you go to your C drive or wherever it's installed, go to your program files, go to Pixar and your Pro server. We'll go ahead and click that. And in library, we have Renderman Asset Library and Environment Maps, Outdoor, and this is the Luxo Junior RMA. And this one right here, it says it's a text file, but that's absolutely perfect. I'm going to go ahead and copy that file. And if I go back to my project files here under textures, I can go ahead and paste that in there. So I'm going to use that file to light my scene, and so I can go textures, go ahead and excuse me, open up that text file and accept. Now looking through the camera now, if I go ahead and do a quick render, actually before I do that, let's go ahead and apply a surface shader. And so I can come over here, add Renderman node tree, and it has now got a PxrSurface shader with default color and everything on the sphere. And I can go ahead and start a render, and the It window will pop up. And believe it or not, it will render here pretty quick, hopefully 90%. Ta-da! And let's try an IPR render. Right now my sphere is coming in black and I'm not quite sure why. Let's look at the diffuse color here. Color should be coming in quite a bit lighter. But the main thing is you can see the background there, and a lot of times I found that if I save this file and then go ahead and open it back up and do another IPR render, still having a problem, but I think it'll work itself out here rather quickly. Okay, apparently I fixed my problem, and I don't know exactly what was wrong. I got a feeling I might have had a bad FBX file or a glitch or anything, but I went ahead and reinstalled Renderman for Blender. I re-downloaded my Blender or my Substance Sphere, and just kind of started fresh, and now everything's rendering just fine. I have created the material for this in my presets here. On the sampling, you got preview presets, you've got all these right here. Right now I'm on preview preset, which is using a low sample rate, and it's just pretty much what does it look like, you know, do a quick render, There you go. Oh, looks good. Okay, done. And I like to keep it on that resolution until I want to do my final. Okay, let's go ahead and as you can see, I have already put in, I've named it Metal Rust Matte, and it's a PxrSurface material. So I need to enable these three right here, and the first thing I'm going to do is make my textures. And for there, again, I'm going to go into Substance Painter any day now. And I've already got a file new, and this is what I'm going to use here. It's a PBR for PxrSurface that I had made for OpenGL in 2048. Let's go ahead and render Ericsson and Blender files, Metal Rust, FBX, and I'm going to use the very same object. And I'm going to go ahead and add all of these bakes right here, open, and there we go. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and dump this layer here. As you can see, I got diffuse, specular, height, normal, and roughness enabled. Let's go ahead and find that Metal Rust, MET, Metal Rust, where is it, Metal, R-U-S-T, there we go. And I'm going to enable that, and I'm just going to change the mapping to 1. And there's that very same material that I've been using over and over. I'm going to come down here and make sure that I'm on OpenGL. Excuse me. And I've turned on diffuse, that's off, specular's on, roughness is on, metallic is off, height is on. And there we go. Everything is enabled. So I've got my map piles all set. There's my diffuse, specular, height, normal, and roughness. Okay, everything's good. So let's go back to here, and let's go ahead and export textures. Well, let's go ahead and save this file. And Ericsson, and I like to save my substance file in exactly the same place that I put my textures. So I'll call it MET Metal Rust and save it and give it a second. There we go. And I'm going to export the textures, and I should have PBR PxrSurface enabled. This is called Sphere, and Diff, Spec, Nor, Height, Rough. I like to use EXR because then I don't have to linearize everything. And let's go ahead and make sure that it's going to download to the right spot. Render, Ericsson, Blender files, Metal Rust, textures, sounds good, and export. Now if I open that folder up, you can see that I indeed have everything loaded in here, and I'm good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit File and Save one more time, and I can dump out of that file. Okay, now I need to add my materials or my textures to my material, and so let's go ahead and open up a node editor, and I don't need this anymore, that's old. let's go ahead and bring this up, and I need to install my textures. I'm going to need these 3 channels, so I'm going to open up my diffuse, and for my color I'm going to use a PXR texture, or not P texture, but texture, and then I can come over here and I can call this node MET metal rust and diff for diffuse. And as you can say, that should rename this node. It didn't. Oh, I was on this right here. So this is metal rust. This is actually a shading group. There we go. And this is metal rust, MET metal rust underscore diff. There we go. And now let's go ahead. I'm going to go to textures, and there's my diffuse, and that's good to go. I can just kind of close that up. Next thing that I need to do, let's take a look at, I need to find that here in just a second. My primary specular. There we go. And on my primary specular, on my face color, let's go ahead and add what I need for there. And again, I'm going to do PXR texture. Whoops, wrong one. That's the P text, so delete that. Face color, PXR oh, here we go, PXR texture, and change that to Cat Moran, and I don't need to linearize it, I just need to add my spec file. Okay, that's all good, and let's go ahead and close that up. Okay, the next one would be, we can go ahead and do my normal map. If I come over to here and hit Shift Add and do a search, I can do PXR normal map. There we go. And that is result N into the bump. And go to textures and NOR, and that is good to go. I probably should name these, so this will be metal rust underscore NOR, and this one here will be metal rust and underscore SPC. I like to keep everything named, and that's good to go. Okay, lastly, I'm going to have to put in my roughness map. So if we come down here to, here we go, my rough specular. Oh, I forgot to take my edge color, and I want to set that to white. There we go. And if I come to my specular roughness, where it says, let me come down here, where it says rough specular, let me see, rough specular roughness. Rough specular roughness is where I want to attach that. So let's go ahead and come down to here, and that'll be it right here. So as you remember, we can do a PXR texture, and you can see that it automatically hooked up result R, and it'll do that because that is the brightest channel. We can go into textures and my rough EXR. However, I don't like that workflow. I think I'd do much better if I use a utility, and because I'd like to utilize all of the channels, not just the red channel. So we can go Shift Add, search, and that'll be PXR PXR to float. There we go, PXR to float. And if I go to the RGB in, I change this to luminous. I can then just plug that in, and I can come over here and I can call this MET metal rust rough, and this one I can call MET metal RU rust rough, and FLOAT. There we go. Okay, everything's named. Let's go ahead and save this file, and save. And let's do a quick render. I'll open this up and render. Okay, looks like I got actually a fairly decent render here. Let's look at it from different light angles. To do that, let's go ahead and start the IPR for interactive, and I've got a light in here somewhere. Where is that light? It's under World. Okay, well, I wanted to rotate that light, and I can. Let me change that the way that it's running, because I can, if I go into the world and click None, I can then go to the Renderman tab, and I'm going to add an environment light. There we go. And under Basic, let's go ahead and Textures, and I'll add that in. Okay. Now the advantage here is I can, and it doesn't matter up and down, sideways, whatever, I can pretty much move this wherever. Where I get the real power of this is when I rotate. So let me go ahead R, and on the X or Z, and let's go ahead and rotate our environment around. Okay. That actually looks pretty darn good. I notice with Blender, Renderman for Blender, I still get a little bit too much specularity, I think, on my rust here. And I think one way to kind of fix that is if I go ahead and make this one more connection. If I take this F, the roughness here, and I go up to diffuse color, I can also attach that to diffuse roughness. Now that really shouldn't affect the metal, because in the diffuse color there is no color for the metal, but it will affect the rust, and you're not going to really see that too much right now, but in the final render that will make quite a difference. So let me go ahead and I'm going to stop this render, and I'm going to get set up for a final render. Now I have several ways that I can go. Oh, there's one other thing that I need to set here. Whoops, I didn't need subsurface. Let me go to my material here, and this is empty metal rust and material. I need to set this for GGX. So let me go over here, and I always have a little trouble finding it here. Let's go to Advance, and there it is. Under Advance, change it from Beckman to GGX, and that'll give me a lot better results. And did I just kill my... When I click something here, I might have... Yeah, I disconnected my stuff here. So let me go metal rust to... Where's my diffuse? Got to be careful. If you uncheck those things, you completely dump everything, and I'm going to go ahead and diffuse rust as well. Let's go ahead and save this file, and let's go back to rendering here. I was under my preview preset, but I'm going to set this to final denoise preset, and I'm going to lower the sampling because I don't really need that high of sampling to 128. And what that's going to do, it's going to create two files. It's going to create a final file and then a denoised file. And denoising is great because if you have any fireflies or anything else in there that shouldn't be there, Renderman does an excellent job at getting rid of all that, and plus it shrinks the file dramatically. So I'm going to go ahead and start that render. It's going to take a little bit. Let me get into my viewfinder here, and I'm going to start that render. It's going to take a little bit of time, so I'm going to pause this while it's thinking and doing what it's doing. Okay, I've finished my render, and as you can see, it's right here. And if I go over to my file over here, you can see that I'm in my Renderman for Blender file on my drive R, exactly where I set it to. It created a new file for metal rust, and if I go into images, you can see that I've got two files in here for the same thing. These are EXR files, and you can see this is the original render. It's 46,000 kilobytes, but then it denoises it and takes out a lot of the white spacing, any bad flickers that I may have on it, and it creates this filtered file. And if I open this up in Photoshop, unfortunately GIMP doesn't handle EXRs very well. So let me bring this over, and you can see that I've got my final render done, and it looks just great as far as I'm concerned. It's all the environment lighting has been done. I've got good edge Fresnel on it, and I'm extremely happy with the render. So this concludes using Renderman for Blender in look development, and we'll be continuing on my next series. I'll be bringing in my project. that I'm going to be doing, and I think I'm going to first do a street scene. And so I'll be showing that project off here very soon, and I hope you stay tuned for it. Until then, have a great day.